The gun pressed against Cai's spine felt colder than the rain. He couldn't run anymore. His legs shook, his lungs burned, and his swollen belly made every step feel like dragging a boulder through mud. The alley smelled like wet metal and garbage, and somewhere behind him, footsteps splashed through puddles, getting closer. Cai pressed his back against the brick wall, one hand clutching his stomach, the other covering his mouth to keep from sobbing out loud. His shirt clung to his skin, torn at the shoulder, soaked through. Blood mixed with rainwater dripped from a cut above his eyebrow. Port Ellery didn't save people like him. It swallowed them whole. 3 weeks ago, Cai had been cleaning a private room at the agency when he found the laptop. It was left open, files scattered across the screen, names, photos, bank transfers. He didn't understand half of it, but he recognized faces, politicians, businessmen, men who smiled on television and destroyed lives behind closed doors. He copied the files onto a flash drive and hid it in his shoe. 2 days later, Darron Kest dragged him into the basement. "Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is." Darron didn't ask questions. He just smiled that awful smile, the one that made Cai's stomach twist, and said, "You've been busy, haven't you?" Then came the cameras, the chairs, the strangers watching while Darron made Cai kneel and beg like he was nothing, like he was less than human. And when it was over, Darron leaned close and whispered, "You think you can run? You're pregnant. That belly isn't just fat, that's leverage. If you disappear, I'll cut it out and sell it piece by piece." Cai ran that night. He had no plan, no money, no allies, just the flash drive and the desperate hope that he could disappear before Darron found him. But Darron always found what he wanted. Now Cai stood in the rain, trapped in an alley with nowhere left to go. His breathing came in short gasps, his vision blurred. He could hear them, 3 men, maybe 4, boots scraping against wet pavement. One of them laughed, "Found you, Omega." Cai pressed harder against the wall, his hands shaking. He thought about the baby, about the life inside him that didn't ask to be born into this nightmare. He thought about the night he got pregnant, the masked alpha, the silent room, the shame that still made his skin crawl. He didn't know the man's name, didn't know his face. Just the weight of him, the way he moved like Cai wasn't even there. The agency called it a premium client. Cai called it the worst night of his life. The footsteps stopped. Cai squeezed his eyes shut, waiting for the gunshot, the blade, the hands that would drag him back. Instead, he heard something else. A small voice, shaking, terrified. "Please don't." Cai's eyes snapped open. He turned his head and there, just a few feet away, crouched beneath a flickering streetlight, was a child. A little boy no older than 6, huddled in a soaking wet hoodie. His face was streaked with rain and tears, his small hands pressed against the ground like he was trying to make himself invisible. Behind him, 3 men in black tactical gear moved closer, faces covered, weapons drawn. One of them pointed at the boy. "Grab him, we're already late." The boy whimpered and Cai's heart cracked open. He didn't think, didn't calculate, didn't weigh survival against stupidity. He just moved. Cai stepped in front of the child, arms spread wide, his belly jutting forward like a shield. His voice came out broken, barely more than a whisper. "Don't." The men stopped. One of them tilted his head, almost amused. "Move, Omega, this isn't your business." Cai's hands trembled, but he didn't step aside. He's just a kid. Another man laughed, low and cruel. "That kid is worth $10 million, and you're not even worth the bullet." The boy grabbed the back of Cai's shirt, his tiny fingers curling into the wet fabric. Cai could feel him shaking, could hear the way his breath hitched like he'd been holding it for hours. And in that moment, Cai saw himself, small, helpless, waiting for someone, anyone, to choose him. So he said the bravest thing he'd ever said. "Then waste it." The gunman's expression shifted. Surprise flickered across his face, just for a second, before his finger moved toward the trigger. The boy pressed his face against Cai's back and whispered, "Don't let them take me." The gun raised. The world slowed. Cai braced for the impact. And the entire alley exploded with blue and red light. Would you protect a stranger's child if it meant losing your own life? Drop your answer below. The siren screamed so loud Cai thought his eardrums would burst. A black armored SUV slammed into the mouth of the alley, tires screeching, water spraying in every direction. The headlights were blinding, cutting through the rain like knives. Doors flew open before the vehicle even stopped moving. Men poured out 6, maybe 8, dressed in tactical gear, rifles raised, moving with the kind of precision that made Cai's blood freeze. These weren't cops. Cops didn't move like this. Cops didn't make the world hold its breath. The 3 attackers froze. One of them tried to raise his weapon, but a voice cut through the chaos. "Drop it." It wasn't loud, it didn't need to be. Every man in the alley obeyed instantly. Even the rain seemed to pause. Cai's legs gave out. He collapsed against the wall, still clutching the boy, his heart hammering so hard he thought it might break through his ribs. His vision swam. He couldn't breathe, couldn't think. And then he saw him. A man stepped out of the SUV, tall and broad-shouldered, wearing a long black coat that hung open despite the storm. Rain dripped from his dark hair, but he didn't flinch, didn't blink. His face was carved in sharp lines, strong jaw, high cheekbones, eyes that looked like they could see straight through a person's skull. He wasn't beautiful the way models were beautiful. He was beautiful the way storms were beautiful, dangerous, unstoppable. The man walked forward, slow and deliberate, his gaze sweeping across the alley like he owned every inch of it. His eyes landed on the boy first, then shifted to Cai. And when their eyes met, Cai felt something crack inside him. The man's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind his gaze. Recognition, shock, something deeper. One of the soldiers stepped toward Cai. "Sir, we need to secure the..." The man raised his hand. "No." The soldier stopped mid-step. The man kept walking until he was only a few feet away. Up close, Cai could see the way his jaw tightened, the way his nostrils flared slightly, like he was catching a scent he didn't expect. His voice was low, steady, and impossibly calm. "Who did this to you?" Cai's throat closed. He tried to speak, but nothing came out. His hands were still shaking, his body still pressed protectively in front of the boy. The man's gaze dropped to Cai's belly, and his entire posture shifted. It was subtle, just a slight widening of the eyes, a sharp intake of breath, but Cai saw it, felt it. "Does it matter?" Cai finally whispered. "I'm nobody." The man's jaw clenched, his voice dropped even lower, almost dangerous. "You're not nobody." Before Cai could respond, the boy broke away from him and ran forward, throwing his arms around the man's leg. He sobbed into the fabric of the coat, his small body trembling violently. "Uncle, I thought you weren't coming." The man's expression cracked. Just for a second, the cold mask slipped and Cai saw something raw underneath. Pain, guilt, relief. The man knelt down, his large hand pressing gently against the boy's head. His voice softened in a way that made Cai's chest ache. "I'm here now, Roen." "Roen." Cai's blood turned to ice. He knew that name. Everyone in Port Ellery knew that name. Roen Veyne, the missing heir of the Veyne Syndicate, the boy who'd been kidnapped from a private academy 3 days ago, the boy whose disappearance had the entire city on lockdown. And the man standing in front of him. Cai's mind raced, the coat, the soldiers, the way everyone obeyed without question. This was Kieran Veyne. The alpha everyone feared. The Mafia boss who controlled half of Port Ellery's underground. The man who made people disappear. Kieran rose to his full height, his hand still resting on Roen's head. His gaze locked onto Cai again, and this time there was something different in his eyes, something Cai couldn't name. Kieran's nostrils flared again, and his voice came out tight. "That scent." Cai instinctively pressed a hand over his belly, his pulse spiking. "Don't." Kieran took a step closer, not threatening, not aggressive, just focused. "Your baby." Cai's breath hitched. He tried to back up, but the wall was already pressed against his spine. "Stay away from me." Kieran stopped. He didn't push, didn't force. But his voice came out raw. Like the words were being dragged out of him. "I can smell my blood in your child." The world tilted. Cai's vision blurred, his knees buckled. His mind screamed at him to run, to fight, to do anything but stand there. But he couldn't move. Because the man standing in front of him, the most dangerous alpha in Port Ellery, was staring at his belly like it belonged to him. Like Cai was carrying his child. Cai's hands flew to his stomach, his breath coming in short, panicked gasps. "No, no, that's not." But the memory hit him like a sledgehammer. The masked alpha, the silent room, the rough hands, the scent he couldn't place but never forgot. And now, standing here in the rain, Cai understood. The father of his baby wasn't some anonymous client. It was Kieran Veyne. Cai's legs gave out completely. He collapsed forward, and Kieran caught him before he hit the ground. Strong arms wrapped around him, steady and warm despite the cold rain. Cai's vision darkened. His voice came out in a broken whisper. "Please don't sell my baby." And then everything went black. What would you do if you discovered the father of your child was the most dangerous man in the city? Cai woke to the sound of rain tapping against glass. His body felt heavy, like he'd been dragged through concrete. Every muscle ached, his head throbbed, his mouth tasted like copper. He blinked, trying to focus. The ceiling above him was white, smooth, unfamiliar. Soft light filtered through tall windows, and the room smelled faintly of lavender and something medicinal. This wasn't the alley. Panic shot through him. Cai bolted upright, too fast, and immediately doubled over, gasping. Pain fled across his ribs, sharp and hot. "Easy." The voice came from the corner of the room. Cai's head snapped up, and there he was. Kieran Veyne sat in a chair by the window, one leg crossed over the other, his coat draped over the armrest. He wasn't wearing the tactical vest anymore. Just a black shirt, sleeves rolled up to his elbows, revealing forearms covered in faint scars. He looked calmer now, almost relaxed. But his eyes, those cold, sharp eyes, were locked on Cai like he was afraid he'd vanish. Cai pressed himself back against the headboard, his hands instinctively moving to his belly. "Where am I?" "Safe house," Kieran's voice was steady, matter of fact. "You passed out, my medic checked you over, you and the baby are fine." Cai's breath hitched. "The baby is fine," Kieran repeated, slower this time. "I wouldn't let anyone touch you without your consent, but you were bleeding, you needed stitches." Cai looked down. His shirt was gone, replaced with a soft grey sweater that smelled faintly of cedarwood. Bandages covered his ribs and shoulder. His hands were clean, the dirt and blood washed away. Someone had taken care of him. And that made him more afraid than anything else. "Where's the boy?" Cai asked, his voice shaking. "Roan's asleep in the next room." Kieran's expression softened, just barely. "He wouldn't leave until he knew you were okay." Cai's throat tightened. He didn't know what to say, didn't know what to feel. Kieran leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. His gaze never left Cai's face. "I'm not going to hurt you." Cai laughed, bitter, broken. "That's what they all say." Kieran's jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. He just watched Cai like he was trying to memorize every detail. "You don't have to stay here," Kieran said quietly, "but I need you to understand something. The men who tried to take Roen, they weren't random kidnappers. They work for someone who wants to destroy my family, and if they know you protected him." He paused, his voice dropping. "They'll come for you too." Cai's hands trembled. He wanted to argue, to say he didn't care, that he'd survived worse, but the truth was he was exhausted, he was terrified, and he had nowhere else to go. "Why do you care?" Cai whispered. "You don't even know me." Kieran's gaze dropped to Cai's belly. "I know enough." The words hung in the air like a confession. Cai's heart pounded. He wanted to ask, wanted to demand the truth, but he was too afraid of the answer. Before he could speak, the door opened. Roen peeked in, his small face pale and worried. He wore fresh clothes, soft pajamas that looked too big on him, and his hair was still damp from a bath. "Is he okay?" Roen asked, his voice small. Kieran's expression softened completely. "He's okay." Roen ran over to the bed and climbed up beside Cai, careful not to bump him. He looked up with wide, earnest eyes. "Thank you for saving me." Cai's chest tightened. He didn't know what to say, didn't know how to explain that he wasn't a hero, that he was just a broken Omega who made a stupid choice in a dark alley. But Roen didn't wait for an answer. He just curled up beside Cai, his small hand resting gently on Cai's arm. And for the first time in weeks, Cai felt something he didn't recognize. Safety. Kieran stood, moving toward the door. "I'll let you rest, if you need anything." "Wait." Kieran stopped, his hand on the doorframe. Cai swallowed hard. "What you said in the alley, about the baby." Kieran's shoulders tensed. Was it true? Kieran turned, his expression unreadable. For a long moment he didn't speak. then slowly he nodded. Yes. Cai's world tilted again, his hands pressed against his belly, his mind racing. How? I don't know, Kieran said quietly, but I'm going to find out. And then he left, closing the door softly behind him. Cai sat there, Roen curled up beside him, the rain still tapping against the glass. And on the muted television across the room, a news anchor was speaking. Cai's eyes drifted toward the screen, and his blood turned to ice. Because there, playing on a loop, was the video. The one Darron made. The one where Cai was on his knees, begging, crying, broken. And beneath it the headline read, Omega Escort Scandal, Exclusive Footage. Cai's breath stopped. The door burst open. A guard rushed in, his face pale. Boss Darron Kest has found the safe house. How far would you go to protect someone you just met? Kieran didn't run. He walked back into the room with the kind of calm that made the air feel heavier. His eyes swept over Cai, then Roen, then the guard who was still standing in the doorway, breathing hard. How many? Kieran asked, his voice flat. 6, maybe more. They're coming from the east perimeter. Kieran nodded once. Get Roen to the safe room, now. The guard hesitated, and the Omega. Kieran's gaze shifted to Cai. For a moment, something unreadable passed across his face. He stays with me. Cai's heart slammed against his ribs. What? No, I'm not. Kieran crossed the room in 3 long strides and crouched in front of him, his eyes locking onto Cai's with an intensity that made it hard to breathe. They're not here for Roen anymore, Kieran said quietly. They're here for you. Cai's blood ran cold. How do you? Because Darron Kest put a bounty on you 30 minutes ago. $500,000, dead or alive. The words hit Cai like a punch to the gut. His hands flew to his stomach, his breath coming in short gasps. Kieran's expression softened, just barely. I'm not going to let them touch you, but I need you to trust me. Trust? Cai almost laughed. He didn't trust anyone, not anymore. But Kieran wasn't asking, he was telling. And something in his eyes, something solid, something unshakable, made Cai nod. Kieran stood, pulling a handgun from the holster beneath his shirt. He checked the magazine, then looked at the guard. Move! The guard grabbed Roen, who was clinging to Cai's arm, tears streaming down his face. I don't want to leave him, Roen cried. Kieran knelt again, his voice softer. I'll protect him, I promise. Roen looked between them, his small face twisted with fear. Then, slowly, he let go. The guard carried him out, and the door slammed shut. Cai was alone with Kieran. The silence stretched, broken only by the distant sound of engines and shouting. Kieran moved to the window, his body tense, his eyes scanning the treeline beyond the property. His jaw was tight, his breathing controlled. Cai's voice came out shaky. Why are you doing this? Kieran didn't turn. Doing what? Protecting me. You don't even know me. Kieran's shoulders tensed. For a long moment he didn't answer. Then quietly he said, I know more than you think. Cai's heart pounded. What does that mean? Kieran turned, and for the first time, Cai saw something raw in his eyes, something that looked almost like regret. That night, Kieran said slowly, the one you don't want to remember, I was there. Cai's breath stopped. I was the client. The room tilted. Cai's hands gripped the edge of the bed, his vision swimming. No, he whispered. No, you didn't. I didn't know it was you, Kieran said, his voice rough. They drugged me, set it up. I woke up the next morning with no memory of your face, just your scent. Cai's chest heaved. He wanted to scream, wanted to run, wanted to claw the truth out of Kieran's throat. But he couldn't move. Kieran took a step closer, his hands open, non-threatening. I've been looking for you for months. I didn't know your name, didn't know where you went, but when I saw you in that alley. He paused, his voice breaking. When I smelled our child, I knew. Cai's vision blurred with tears. You let them do this to me. I didn't know. You should have known, Cai's voice cracked, raw and desperate. You should have. Gunfire erupted outside. Kieran moved instantly, grabbing Cai and pulling him away from the window. Glass shattered, raining down in sharp fragments. Shouts echoed from below. Kieran pressed Cai against the wall, shielding him with his body. His voice was low, urgent. Stay down. Cai's hands gripped Kieran's shirt, his body trembling. He could feel Kieran's heartbeat, steady, controlled, even in the chaos. More gunfire, closer this time. Kieran's radio crackled. Boss, they're inside, basement level. Kieran cursed under his breath. He looked down at Cai, his expression torn. I need to get you out of here. Cai shook his head. They'll kill you. They won't. How do you know? Kieran's jaw tightened. Because I've survived worse. He grabbed Cai's hand and pulled him toward the door. They moved fast, down a narrow hallway, past rooms filled with shadows and flickering lights. Cai's legs burned. His belly felt heavy, pulling him down, but Kieran never let go. They reached a stairwell. Kieran pushed Cai inside, then turned to face the hallway. 3 men appeared at the other end, weapons raised. Kieran didn't hesitate. He fired twice. Both men dropped. The third lunged forward, and Kieran met him head-on, disarming him with brutal efficiency. The man hit the ground, unconscious. Kieran turned back to Cai, breathing hard. Move. They descended the stairs, the sound of footsteps echoing above them. Cai's mind raced. He didn't understand any of this, didn't understand why Kieran was risking everything for him. They burst through a door into an underground garage. A sleek black car waited, engine running. Kieran shoved Cai into the passenger seat, then climbed in beside him. The car peeled out, tires screeching, disappearing into the night. Cai pressed a hand to his chest, trying to catch his breath. Kieran's voice was quiet. You're safe now. Cai looked at him, tears streaming down his face. Am I? Kieran's hands tightened on the wheel. He didn't answer. And Cai realized, with a sinking dread, that he was tied to this man now. Whether he wanted to be or not. Would you forgive someone who claimed they didn't remember hurting you? The new safe house was smaller, quieter. It sat on the edge of the city, hidden behind tall trees and an iron gate. The windows were bulletproof, the doors were reinforced. Guards patrolled the perimeter in shifts. Cai stood in the bedroom, staring at his reflection in the mirror. His face was pale, his eyes hollow. The bruises had faded to yellow, but the exhaustion remained. He looked like a ghost. Roen sat on the bed behind him, coloring in a notebook. His small legs swung back and forth, his tongue sticking out in concentration. Do you like blue or green? Roen asked. Cai forced a smile. Blue. Roen nodded seriously and switched crayons. The door opened. Kieran stepped inside, carrying a tray with soup, bread, and water. Cai didn't turn. I'm not hungry. You need to eat, Kieran said quietly. He set the tray on the dresser. I said I'm not hungry. Kieran didn't argue. He just stood there, hands in his pockets, watching Cai with that same unreadable expression. Roen looked up. Uncle Kieran, can we play cards later? Kieran's face softened. Sure, kid. Roen grinned and went back to coloring. Cai finally turned, his arms crossed. Why are you still here? Kieran's gaze didn't waver. Where else would I be? Anywhere but here. Kieran took a step closer. You think I'm going to leave you? You should. Why? Cai's voice cracked. Because I'm nothing. I'm just some omega you used and forgot. Kieran flinched. It was subtle, but Cai saw it. I didn't forget, Kieran said quietly. I was looking for you. For months, you said. Months. Cai's hands shook. You know what I was doing for months. Surviving, running, hiding, trying not to get killed. Kieran's jaw tightened. I know. Do you really know what it's like to be treated like property? To be dragged into a room and humiliated in front of strangers? To have someone whisper that they'll cut your baby out if you try to escape? Kieran's fists clenched. His voice came out low, dangerous. Who said that to you? Cai laughed bitterly. Does it matter? Yes. Why? So you can kill them. Kieran didn't answer. He didn't need to. Cai turned away, his chest heaving. I don't need your protection. I don't need your guilt. I just need to disappear. You can't. Why not? Because Darron Kest won't stop until you're dead. Cai's blood ran cold. He turned slowly. What? Kieran pulled out his phone and showed Cai the screen. It was a news article. The headline read, Omega escort scandal escalates, alleged trafficking ring exposed. Beneath it was a photo of Cai. Cai's legs gave out. He collapsed onto the edge of the bed, staring at the screen. That video, Kieran said quietly. The one they made of you, it's everywhere. News outlets, social media, underground forums. Darren's using it to paint you as a liar, as someone trying to destroy him. Cai's vision blurred. No. And because of that, Kieran continued, everyone thinks you're dangerous, a threat. Darren's convinced half the city that you're trying to blackmail him. Cai's hands pressed against his mouth. He couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Kieran knelt in front of him, his voice steady. But I know the truth. Cai looked at him, tears streaming down his face. What truth? You're not dangerous, you're a survivor, and I'm going to make sure the world knows it. Cai shook his head. You can't. I already am. Kieran stood, pulling out a folder from his coat. He opened it, revealing documents, photos, recordings. This is everything, Kieran said. The trafficking ring, the blackmail, the bribery, Darren's entire operation. Cai stared at the folder, his heart pounding. Where did you get this? From you. Cai blinked. What? Kieran pulled out a small flash drive. You had this in your shoe when we brought you here. My team recovered it. Cai's breath hitched. The flash drive, the one he'd stolen weeks ago. He'd forgotten about it. Kieran's voice was quiet. This is what Darren's been hunting you for, not just the baby, not just revenge, this. Cai looked at the documents, his mind racing. What's on it? Kieran's expression darkened. Everything, names, transactions, videos. He paused, then pulled out a single photo. Cai's blood turned to ice. It was Roen, standing beside a man in a suit. And beneath the photo, a price tag, $15 million. Cai's voice came out in a whisper. He was going to sell him. Kieran's jaw clenched. Not to strangers, to my enemy, to start a war. Cai looked up, his heart pounding. What does that mean? Kieran's eyes burned with something cold and deadly. It means Darron Kest just signed his own death warrant. Before Cai could respond, a guard burst into the room, his face pale. Boss, we just got a call. Darren's men have Cai's location. They're coming. Kieran's expression didn't change. He just stood, pulled his gun and looked at Cai. Stay with Roen, no matter what happens, stay with him. Cai grabbed Kieran's arm. Wait, what are you going to do? Kieran's gaze was ice. What I should have done months ago. And then he was gone. What would you do if the most dangerous man in the city was the only one standing between you and death? The explosion shook the walls. Cai threw himself over Roen, shielding the boy with his body as plaster rained down from the ceiling. The lights flickered once, twice, then died completely. Emergency red bulbs clicked on, bathing the room in blood-colored light. Roen screamed. Cai pressed a hand over the boy's mouth, his own heart hammering so hard he thought it would crack his ribs. SHH, quiet, we have to be quiet. Gunfire erupted downstairs, sharp cracks that made Cai's teeth rattle. Shouting, breaking glass, heavy boots pounding against hardwood. Cai pulled Roen off the bed and dragged him toward the closet. His hands shook so badly he could barely turn the handle. He shoved Roen inside, then squeezed in beside him, pulling the door shut. Darkness swallowed them whole. Roen clung to Cai's shirt, his small body trembling. Cai wrapped his arms around him, pressing his lips against the boy's hair, whispering things he didn't believe. It's okay, we're okay. Kieran's here, he won't let them hurt us. But Cai didn't know if that was true. The gunfire stopped. Silence pressed down like a weight. Then footsteps, slow, deliberate, coming up the stairs. Cai's breath caught. He pressed himself deeper into the corner of the closet, one hand covering Roen's mouth, the other wrapped protectively around his belly. The bedroom door creaked open. Light spilled in, flashlight beams cutting through the darkness, sweeping across the room. A voice low, cold, familiar. I know you're in here, Omega. Cai's blood turned to ice. It was Darron Kest. Footsteps moved closer, slow, confident, like a predator that already knew it had won. You really thought you could run from me? Darron's voice was smooth, almost amused. You really thought some Mafia boss would protect you? The flashlight beam swept across the closet door. Cai squeezed his eyes shut, his body pressed so tightly against Roen, he could feel the boy's heartbeat against his chest. Darron laughed. "Come out, make this easy." Cai didn't move. The closet door flew open. Light blinded him. Hands grabbed his arm, yanking him forward. Cai tried to hold onto Roen, but the boy was ripped away, screaming. "No," Cai lunged, but someone slammed him against the wall. His vision exploded with stars. Pain shot through his shoulder. Darron stepped into view, his face twisted with satisfaction. He was dressed in an expensive suit, not a wrinkle out of place, like he was attending a business meeting instead of a kidnapping. "There you are," Darron said softly. Cai spat blood. "Where's Kieran?" Darron smiled. "Busy. My men are keeping him occupied downstairs. By the time he realizes you're gone, we'll be halfway across the state." Cai's chest heaved. "You won't get away with this." "I already have." Darron crouched, his face inches from Cai's. "You see that flash drive, the one you stole? I've already discredited it, called it fake, doctored, the work of a desperate Omega trying to ruin me." He grabbed Cai's chin, forcing him to look up. "And this video I'm about to make, the one where you confess to blackmail, to lying, to seducing my clients." Darron's smile widened. "That's going to be your legacy." Cai's vision blurred with tears. "I didn't." "No one cares what you did." Darron released him, standing. "They only care what I tell them you did." He gestured to one of his men. "Set up the camera, and bring the boy, I want him in the shot." Roen was dragged forward, tears streaming down his face. He reached for Cai, his small voice breaking. "Cai." Cai tried to move, but hands pinned him down. "Don't touch him, he's just a kid." Darron's expression didn't change. "He's worth $15 million, and you," he leaned close, "you're worth nothing." Cai's hands clenched into fists. His mind raced. He had no weapon, no plan, no way out. But he had one thing Darron didn't expect. He had survived worse. Cai's voice came out low, steady. "You're wrong." Darron raised an eyebrow. "About what?" "I'm worth everything." Cai looked him dead in the eye. "Because I'm carrying Kieran Veyne's child." Darron's smile faltered. And the door exploded. "Would you risk everything to protect a child that wasn't yours?" Kieran came through the door like a storm. He didn't shout, didn't announce himself. He just moved fast, precise, deadly. One of Darron's men turned, raising his gun, and Kieran disarmed him in 2 moves. The man hit the floor unconscious before he even realized what happened. Another lunged forward. Kieran sidestepped, grabbed the man's wrist, twisted. Bone cracked. The man screamed. Darron stumbled backward, his face pale. "Kill him." 3 more men rushed in. Kieran didn't flinch. He moved like he'd done this 1,000 times, blocking, striking, disarming. A gun fired. The bullet missed. Kieran grabbed the shooter's arm, redirected it, and the man shot his own partner in the leg. Chaos erupted. Cai grabbed Roen and pulled him into the corner, shielding him with his body. His hands trembled, his breath coming in short gasps, but he didn't let go. Kieran's voice cut through the noise. "Get down." Cai dropped, pressing Roen flat against the floor. Gunfire exploded above them. Glass shattered, wood splintered. And then silence. Cai looked up. Kieran stood in the center of the room, surrounded by unconscious bodies. His shirt was torn, blood smeared across his KN knuckles, but his eyes were calm, focused. He looked at Cai. "You okay?" Cai nodded, his throat too tight to speak. Kieran turned to Darron, who was pressed against the wall, eyes wide with fear. "You shouldn't have come here," Kieran said quietly. Darron tried to smile, but it came out shaky. You can't do anything to me. I have connections, politicians, judges, if I disappear." "You're not going to disappear." Kieran pulled out his phone and pressed a button. A voice crackled through the speaker. "Federal agents are en route. ETA 3 minutes." Darron's face went white. "What did you do?" Kieran's expression was ice. "I gave them everything, the trafficking ring, the blackmail, the bribery, every name, every transaction, every video." He stepped closer. "Including the one where you threatened to cut an unborn child out of its mother." Darron's hands shook. That's not. "It's all verified," Kieran continued. "Time-stamped, authenticated, and it's already been submitted to the state attorney's office." Darron lunged forward, desperation twisting his face. You think you've won, that baby will ruin you, everyone will know you forced yourself on. Kieran's fist connected with Darron's jaw. The man crumpled, hitting the floor hard. Kieran stood over him, his voice cold. I didn't force anything, I was drugged, set up just like Cai. He crouched, grabbing Darron by the collar. And you're the one who arranged it. You're the one who thought you could use an Omega to manipulate me, to create leverage. Kieran's grip tightened. You don't touch Omegas, you don't touch pups, and you never touch what's mine. Darron choked, gasping for air. I'll tell everyone. No one's going to believe you. Kieran released him, letting him collapse, because I have proof. He pulled out a small device from his pocket, a recording chip. This was on you the entire time, Kieran said. Every threat, every confession, every word. Darron's face twisted with rage. He tried to stand, but his legs gave out. Sirens wailed in the distance. Kieran stood, turning to Cai. His expression softened just barely. It's over. Cai's hands shook. He looked at Darron, then at Kieran, then at Roen, who was still clinging to his side. Is he really going to jail? Cai whispered. Kieran nodded, for the rest of his life. Cai's vision blurred. He didn't know if it was relief or exhaustion or something else entirely. His legs buckled, and Kieran caught him before he hit the ground. I've got you, Kieran murmured. Cai pressed his face against Kieran's chest, his body shaking with sobs he'd been holding back for weeks. Roen wrapped his small arms around both of them, his voice muffled. We're safe now, right? Kieran's hand rested gently on the boy's head. Yeah, kid, we're safe. Federal agents stormed the building moments later. They took Darron away in cuffs, his face twisted with fury, his shouts echoing down the hallway. But Cai didn't watch. He just held onto Kieran and Roen, his heart finally slowing, his breath finally evening out. For the first time in months, he wasn't running. He was standing still. And he wasn't alone. How do you rebuild your life after someone tries to destroy it? The hospital room was quiet. Cai sat on the edge of the bed, hands folded in his lap, staring at the ultrasound image pinned to the wall. The baby, his baby, a tiny shape on a black and white screen, curled up like it was waiting for the world to be safe enough to enter. Kieran stood by the window, his back to Cai, hands in his pockets. He hadn't said much since they arrived, just watched, listened, stayed close. Roen was asleep in the chair beside Cai, his head resting on Cai's arm, his small hand wrapped around Cai's wrist like he was afraid to let go. The doctor had left 10 minutes ago, the baby was healthy, Cai was healing, everything was fine. Except it wasn't. Cai's voice came out quiet. You knew, didn't you? Kieran didn't turn. Knew what? That night, the one they set up, you knew it wasn't normal. Kieran's shoulders tensed. For a long moment he didn't answer. Then slowly he turned. His face was hard, but his eyes looked tired, broken. I knew something was wrong, Kieran said quietly. I woke up the next morning with no memory of the night before, just flashes, scents, sounds. He paused. I tried to find out what happened, asked questions, dug through records, but everyone involved was either paid off or dead. Cai's hands clenched. So you just moved on? No, Kieran's voice was firm. I didn't move on. I spent months hunting for answers, for you. Cai's chest tightened. Why? Kieran stepped closer. His gaze locked on Cai's. Because I could smell you, even after weeks, even after the drugs wore off. I knew your scent, and I knew I'd hurt someone who didn't deserve it. Cai's vision blurred. You didn't know it was me. That doesn't make it better. Kieran's voice cracked. I should have stopped them, should have refused, should have. You were drugged. Cai's voice was raw. You didn't choose it. Neither did you. The words hung in the air like a confession. Cai looked down at his hands. I thought I was going to die that night. I thought no one would ever care what happened to me. Kieran knelt in front of him, his eyes level with Cai's. I care. Cai's breath hitched. Why? Because you're not nothing. Kieran's voice was steady, unwavering. You're not property. You're not disposable. You're... He stopped, his jaw tightening. You're the mother of my child, and even if you weren't, you'd still matter. Cai's chest heaved. Tears streamed down his face, and he hated it. Hated that Kieran was seeing him like this. Weak, broken. But Kieran didn't look disgusted, he didn't look impatient. He just looked sorry. I can't take back what happened, Kieran said quietly, but I can make sure it never happens again, to you, to anyone. Cai wiped his face. How? Kieran pulled out a folder from his coat. He opened it, revealing documents, photos, recordings. This is everything Darron had on his operation. Names, locations, victims. He placed it in Cai's hands. You decide what to do with it. You can destroy it, bury it, or... He paused. You can make sure the world knows the truth. Cai stared at the folder, his hands shaking. What if no one believes me? They will, Kieran's voice was firm, because I'll stand beside you, and I'll make sure they listen. Cai looked up, his eyes searching Kieran's face. Why would you do that? It'll ruin you, your reputation, your business. Kieran's expression didn't change. I don't care. Cai's breath caught. You should. I care about you more. The words hit Cai like a punch to the chest. He didn't know how to respond, didn't know if he believed it. But Kieran's eyes didn't waver, didn't lie. Before Cai could speak, his phone buzzed. He pulled it out, his heart sinking when he saw the notification. Another news article, another headline. Omega escort exposed, new video surfaces. Cai's hands trembled. He opened it, his stomach twisting. It was the video Darron had filmed, the one where Cai was on his knees, begging, broken. And beneath it, comments, hundreds of them, thousands. Calling him a liar, a manipulator, a threat. Cai's vision blurred. He threw the phone across the room, his chest heaving. Kieran grabbed his shoulders, his voice urgent. Cai. They'll never believe me, Cai choked out. They'll always see me like this, like I'm nothing. Kieran's grip tightened, then we changed the story. Cai looked up, tears streaming down his face. How? Kieran pulled out his own phone and pressed a button. A voice crackled through the speaker. This is Kieran Veyne. I'm calling to schedule a press conference. Tomorrow morning, I'll be making a statement about Darron Kest, the trafficking ring, and the truth about what happened to Cai Riven. He paused, and I'll be standing beside him. Cai's breath stopped. You can't. I already did. Kieran's eyes burned with determination. You're not facing this alone. Cai stared at him, his heart pounding. And for the first time in his life, he believed someone was telling the truth. A knock on the door interrupted them. A nurse stepped in, her face pale. Mr. Veyne, there's someone here to see you. Kieran frowned. Who? The nurse hesitated. She says she's Cai's sister. Cai's blood ran cold. Because Cai didn't have a sister. What would you do if your past came back to destroy your future? The woman standing in the hallway wore a designer coat and heels that clicked against the tile floor. Her hair was perfectly styled, her makeup flawless. She looked like money, like power. But her eyes were cold. Cai stood frozen in the doorway, his hands gripping the frame. His voice came out in a whisper. Shayla. The woman smiled. Hello, little brother. Kieran stepped between them instantly, his body a wall. Who are you? Shayla's smile widened. I'm family. Cai's voice shook. No, you're not. Shayla's expression flickered, just for a second, before the mask slipped back into place. That's harsh, Cai, after everything I did for you. Cai's hands clenched into fists. Everything you did, you sold me. Kieran's entire body went rigid. His voice dropped to something deadly. What? Shayla laughed, light and airy. That's not how I remember it. Cai stepped forward, his chest heaving. You're the one who introduced me to Darron. You're the one who told him I'd be perfect for his agency. You took money for it. Shayla's smile didn't falter. I gave you an opportunity. You sold me like I was nothing. Kieran's hand moved to his gun. Get out. Shayla raised her hands, still smiling. I'm not here to cause trouble. I just came to offer Cai a deal. Cai's stomach twisted. I don't want anything from you. You will. Shayla pulled out her phone and showed him the screen. It was a video of Cai in the escort agency, with clients, doing things Cai didn't want to remember. Cai's vision blurred. Where did you get that? Darron gave it to me before he was arrested. Shayla's smile turned sharp. Insurance, he called it, in case I ever needed leverage. Kieran moved forward, but Cai grabbed his arm. Don't. Shayla's voice was smooth. Here's the deal. You drop the press conference, you bury the files, you disappear quietly. She paused. And I'll destroy this video. Cai's hands shook, and if I don't. Shayla's smile widened. Then I release it. Every major news outlet, every social media platform, every corner of the internet. She leaned closer. You think Darron ruined your life, I'll make sure you never recover. Cai's chest heaved, his mind raced. He could feel Kieran beside him, tense and ready to explode. But Cai didn't need Kieran to fight this battle. He stepped forward, his voice steady. Do it. Shayla blinked. What? Release it. Cai's eyes burned. Show the world what happened to me. Show them how you sold your own brother to a trafficker. Show them exactly who you are. Shayla's smile faltered. You're bluffing. I'm not. Cai's voice was firm. Because I'm done being afraid of you. I'm done letting you control me. He turned to Kieran. I want to do the press conference. I want to tell the truth. All of it. Kieran's eyes searched Cai's face. Are you sure? Cai nodded. I'm sure. Kieran turned back to Shayla, his expression ice. You heard him. Get out. Shayla's face twisted with rage. You're making a mistake. No, Cai said quietly. I'm finally doing the right thing. Shayla's heels clicked as she stormed down the hallway, her voice echoing. You'll regret this. But Cai didn't feel regret. He felt free. The press conference was held the next morning in a sleek downtown building. Cameras lined the walls, reporters filled the seats, lights blazed. Cai stood at the podium, Kieran beside him, Roen holding his hand. And he told the truth. All of it. The trafficking, the blackmail, the threats, the abuse. He showed the files, the recordings, the evidence. And when he was done, the room erupted in questions, shouts, chaos. But Kieran stepped forward, his voice cutting through the noise. Darron Kest is in federal custody. Cai Riven is under investigation, and anyone else involved in this operation will be brought to justice. He paused, his gaze sweeping across the room. Omegas are not property, children are not commodities, and anyone who thinks otherwise will answer to me. The room fell silent. Cai looked at Kieran, his chest tight. Thank you. Kieran's hand found his. You don't have to thank me. Cai squeezed his hand. Yes, I do. And for the first time in his life, Cai believed he was worth protecting. Would you have the courage to stand up and tell your truth, knowing it could destroy you? 3 months later, the rain came again. But this time, Cai wasn't running. He stood at the window of the Veyne estate, one hand resting on his belly, smaller now, softer, the other holding a mug of tea. The garden outside was green and lush, the storm washing everything clean. Behind him, Roen sat at the table, coloring a picture of a wolf. His tongue stuck out in concentration, his small hands gripping the crayons tightly. Kieran walked in, carrying a bundle wrapped in soft blue blankets. His expression was tired, but his eyes were bright. He's finally asleep, Kieran murmured. Cai turned, his chest swelling with something he couldn't name. He crossed the room and looked down at the baby in Kieran's arms. His son. Tiny, perfect, peaceful. Cai's voice came out soft. He looks like you. Kieran's lips curved into a rare smile. He has your eyes. Cai reached out, brushing a finger against the baby's cheek. The skin was soft, warm, impossibly fragile. Kieran's voice was quiet. What do you want to name him? Cai had thought about this for weeks. He wanted a name that meant something, a name that represented survival, strength, hope. Elijah, Cai said softly, it means the Lord is my God. Kieran's eyes softened. Elijah Veyne. Cai nodded. If that's okay with you. Kieran looked down at the baby, his expression unreadable. Then, slowly, he nodded. It's perfect. Roen hopped off his chair and ran over, standing on his tiptoes to see. Can I hold him? Kieran crouched, carefully placing Elijah in Roen's arms, supporting him. Gentle, just like that. Roen's face lit up. He's so small. Cai smiled, his chest tight with emotion. You were that small once. Roen looked up, beaming. But now I'm big, I can protect him. Kieran ruffled his hair. That's right. Cai watched them, Kieran, Roen, and Elijah, and realized something powerful. This was his family. Not the one he was born into, not the one that hurt him, but the one he chose. Later that night, after Roen was asleep and Elijah was tucked into his crib, Cai stood in the hallway, staring at a framed news article on the wall. Trafficking ring dismantled. Omega advocate Cai Riven speaks out. Beside it was a photo of Cai standing at the podium, strong, unbroken. Kieran appeared beside him, his presence solid and warm. You did that. Cai's voice was quiet. We did that. Kieran's hand found his, their fingers intertwining. You saved more people than you know. Cai looked at him, his eyes searching. Do you ever regret it, getting involved with me? Kieran's expression was firm. Never. Cai's chest swelled, even though it complicated everything. Especially because of that. Kieran's voice was steady. You made me better. You made me remember what's worth fighting for. Cai's vision blurred. I don't know if I can ever fully trust you. I know, Kieran's thumb brushed across Cai's knuckles, but I'll spend the rest of my life earning it. Cai looked at him, this powerful, dangerous alpha, who had every reason to walk away but didn't. And he realized something. Love wasn't about control, it wasn't about ownership. It was about showing up, every day, even when it was hard. Cai's voice came out soft. I think I'm starting to. Kieran's eyes softened. Starting to what? Trust you. Kieran pulled him close, his arms wrapping around Cai's waist, his chin resting on Cai's shoulder. They stood there in the quiet hallway, listening to the rain tap against the windows. And for the first time in his life, Cai wasn't afraid of the storm. Because he wasn't facing it alone. The rain continued through the night, washing away the past, making room for something new. Cai stood at the window, watching Kieran play with Roen in the garden below, both of them laughing as they chased each other through the puddles. Elijah slept peacefully in the crib beside him, his tiny chest rising and falling. And Cai realized something. Pain didn't have to be the end of the story. Sometimes it was the beginning of the life you deserved. Cai pressed a hand to the glass, his reflection staring back at him. He wasn't the same person who ran through that alley, terrified and alone. He was stronger now, braver. He was home. And when the rain finally stopped and the sun broke through the clouds, Cai smiled. Because he wasn't just surviving anymore. He was living. Real love doesn't claim you, it protects you until you believe you're worth protecting. Thank you so much for watching this story. If it touched your heart, inspired you, or made you think differently about survival and healing, please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss another story that could change your perspective. Drop a comment below and share your thoughts. Your words might inspire someone else who needs to hear them. And if you know someone who needs this message, share this video with them. Together, we can create a community that supports, uplifts, and believes in second chances. See you in the next story.